haven't seen already yesterday. I spoke
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just get your attention for a second. Okay, so a couple of things. We're going to start a little bit out at 12. Yeah. Or your fuzzy electronic devices. Also ask you to be kind. There, jumping right here. But the rest of you obviously have feelings about this and so on, various issues we're going to be kind enough to wait till you leave to engage in modeling or moving or we'll just keep this quiet and let folks be able to make it. So we will begin a couple of minutes time with folks. Good, everybody's got their license turned off? We're good? Thank you. So we're going to be here. All those things going to have you facing that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first Accountability Forum as part of the Santa Clara Votes project. My name is Fred Keeley. I'm the city's contract democracy consultant. I would like to take a few minutes and set the circumstances under which we are holding today's Accountability Forum. The Santa Clara Votes program is more than a decade old in Santa Clara. It is designed in two pieces to help inform and educate the electorate and to encourage participation in the democracies through registering to vote, being an informed voter, and then actually casting your votes. That is one half of the program. That part of the program is run essentially by the city manager's office. Customarily, it's run by the city clerk's office, but the city clerk is standing for election this year, so those duties have been moved over to the city manager's office. The other part of the Vote Santa Clara program is the part that involves the Code of Campaign Ethics. Every one of the people who will appear here today has signed that Code of Campaign Ethics. Everyone who will speak. That Code of Campaign Ethics was developed over time. Several years ago was the initial version of that, and it was developed by Dr. Tom Shanks, who is my predecessor in interest as the city's democracy consultant. A couple of years ago, the city of Santa Clara hired me to review the program, and then following a competitive request for proposal process, I was hired to become the new democracy and ethics consultant for the city. The program that I operate on behalf of the city had a component part to it that unfolded mostly in the month of September, and that was issue forums. In discussing this program with the city council and the mayor and with the public and with other interested parties about a year ago, it was a strong feeling that this program should have a couple of pieces, one of which falls into that voter education and information project, portion of the project. And that's why we had the issue-oriented forums. There were 2 such forums for every office in the municipal election up for election on November the 8th. The chief of police, the city clerk, and the 4 city council seats. Those were conducted on consecutive nights, on consecutive weeks back in September, so that the voters could have as much opportunity as possible through the city outlet in this regard as we could put together. All of the questions at that portion of the project, which is to say all of the forums, were either sent in by members of the public in advance at SC votes, or they were submitted on the night of the individual forums. So all of the questions that were asked in those forums came from members of the public. We now have pivoted from the point where it was voter education and information to essentially accountability. This is the part of the project where anyone, a candidate, a campaign, an individual resident of the city of Santa Clara, can say, well, I think there may be a violation of the code of campaign ethics. Let me tell you what my job is not. My job is not in any way, shape, or form a quasi-judicial job. I don't render any opinions about that this is good, bad, or indifferent. What I do is simply look at the question of whether evidence has been submitted to ask the candidates to come forward and make their arguments about a particular circumstance. They will each get 5 minutes to open, 5 minutes to rebut and close, so there'll be 20 minutes in each one of these. Let me tell you how we got to this point. Complaints have been filed in 11 instances since complaints were open for filing some time ago. After filing for office closed, that meant people can start looking at the behavior of other candidates and determine whether they want to file any kind of complaint with respect to the Code of Campaign Ethics. I might point out, by the way, that the Code of Campaign Ethics is available immediately outside the council chambers, as is the agenda and the list of complaints that we'll be hearing today. It's also available on the Santa Clara City's website, where you go to government, go to Santa Clara Votes, and the complaint forms are there. People can fill those out. Of the complaints that were filed, 6 of the complaints were what I determined to be, in essence, not on point. Let me give you an example. Somebody might send in a complaint and say, gee, my opponent has a sign posted on such and such a property, and that's not a property that has given permission, whatever it might be, and I'm complaining. That's a sign enforcement issue. That's not really rising to the level of an ethics complaint that needs to get this kind of forum. So about 6 of the, not about, exactly 6 of the complaints that were filed were of that kind of nature. They weren't on point. They were not, in my estimation, rising to the level of some kind of issue that merited this kind of conversation. One of them rose to a level where I made an attempt to resolve it at the lowest possible level. And so I will be reading a letter from a candidate based on a complaint from another candidate. And I have discussed this with both of the candidates, and although they do not agree that that is the best resolution, I believe it is, and so I'll be reading a letter to try to resolve that issue. That leaves us with three. We have three complaints that have come in that, at least on their face, I believe that it was appropriate to give the parties an opportunity to have their say in a public venue. I will tell you that this is an imperfect system. This is the first time that the city of Santa Clara has had a forum during the campaign rather than the night before the election. And that is to try to capture the efficacy of this program as it relates to those people who vote by mail or are permanent absentee voters, to try to have these be timely. What has happened is the folks who have filed the complaint have filed them. The folks, in essence, who are responding to the complaint have been sent to the address they provided to the city as a candidate, as their contact point. They have been sent the complaint. I have also spoken on the phone with every person who has filed a complaint and every person who is a respondent to the complaint. We have also had email exchanges. I will tell you at the beginning of this that that has been imperfect on my part. It has been imperfect. I would like to have had more frequent contact with the folks who are here today, but I was unable to do so. I take responsibility for that. But what we are here to do today is to hear these three cases. They will all have their opportunity. Let me tell you the other thing I do not do. I will make no comment as to either the substance or the veracity of any claim that is made or any statement that is made today. Lastly, I need to go to a particular complaint which the parties need to be extraordinarily careful on. And that is the second one that we will hear today, which is Mr. Sturkle and Mr. Sellers. This involves a personnel matter, and the parties have agreed that they are going to use no names, make no references to the parties involved. There are issues involved of privacy, of confidentiality, of liability, of potential personal liability. So the candidates are going to stick to a very narrow discussion in that particular case. Fairly recently, I received a complaint from Mr. Anthony Becker. Mr. Becker was concerned that at a forum, the SES forum, that one of his opponents, Ms. Watanabe, made a statement that some other party had contributed funds to her opponents. I watched that SES forum in its entirety, watched the video of that, and watched the statement in question about 4 times to make sure that I understood what it was. I think that this one is a fairly close call. And I wanted to ask the candidates if they would be kind enough, instead of having a full forum on this, if I could read a letter from Ms. Watanabe. I will tell you that this is not completely satisfactory to Mr. Becker, but it is a decision that I have made. I will now read you that letter. It came to my attention through a complaint filed by Mr. Becker that I misspoke last evening about donations to candidates by Mr. John Molnarek. In an effort to say all I wanted to say in 2 minutes, I misspoke and lumped all candidates into my statement about receiving donations from Mr. Molnarek. I had looked at all of the 460s before the forum and knew that there were 4 candidates for another seat that received such monies. I wanted you all to know that I misspoke. None of my opponents in the seat I am seeking had received any such monies. My apologies, Kathy Watanabe. Now what we will do is move to the first situation. We're going to hear first from Ms. Mahan, then Mr. Silva, then Ms. Mahan, then Mr. Silva. They each have 5 minutes at each one of those moments. They will be addressing you from the speaker's podium in front of me. They will be speaking from what is typically behind the podium so that they are facing you, as opposed to when you typically come to city council meetings, they're facing the council. But they're addressing the public, so they will be addressing you. The essence of the issue here goes to that portion of the Code of Campaign Ethics that speaks to use of statements or quotes out of context. That is the heart of the assertion by Ms. Mahan. Ms. Mahan, you have 5 minutes. I will begin the clock when you begin speaking. And you're here facing that way. Just want to make sure. No, don't do this.
The goal of Stand Up for Santa Clara, a Facebook website page, is, according to its Facebook website, to be managed by an honest, transparent, and trustworthy city government, not an NFL franchise. It was started, I'm sorry, they told me this was on, but it's very hard to get close enough to it. It was started by Tito Silva, Steve Robertson, and Vicky Field. Mr. Silva is a candidate for city council. It purports to be an LLC, yet there is no filing with the California Secretary of State, as would be required by law. On or about September 29th, 2016, the Santa Clara Stand Up for Santa Clara Facebook page posted a headline against me stating that I illegally lobbied Santa Clara officials. It quotes out of context a single sentence from an 11-page report. This post was emailed to the site's email list as well. The report was prepared by an independent counsel selected by our city attorney to investigate whether or not allegations made by Deborah Bress, also a candidate in this election, that I'm a lobbyist were true. The allegations that I violated the city's new lobbyist ordinance were made by Ms. Bress in an attempt to show in her own race that our city clerk somehow did something wrong by not enforcing the lobbyist ordinance and forcing me to register. There is an exemption in our city code that provides that attorneys do not have to register as lobbyists. They are exempt when they are working as an attorney. To start, I'm not a lobbyist. I am an attorney. I've been in practice for the past 35 years. I have no interest in starting another career as a lobbyist or anything else. I took on a client that had a project before the city council, which had a rather complex contract and needed some assistance in explaining this contract to city incumbents. Of course, allegations are easy to make, and some candidates, including some incumbents, tried to use mere allegations against me and my campaign in the press and other media. The independent counsel stated in conclusion, after a thorough investigation, that I did not commit any knowing violation of the ordinance that would subject me to any penalties because I had a, quote, reasonable and good faith belief that I was covered by the attorney exemption and had satisfied the requirements of our city code. Although the Stand Up for Santa Clara site quoted correctly the one sentence from the report, it was taken out of context and did not convey the independent counsel's conclusion that I did nothing wrong. Most egregiously, the headline contains the very prejudicial word illegal. Nothing I did was illegal. I violated no law, no city code. Yet this innuendo and insinuation was publicized more than one time by a website that Mr. Silva created, which I believe he still is involved in. And even if he is not involved, we all took a pledge to our campaign code of ethics that we would immediately repudiate anything that was done in a campaign that harmed another candidate. We would immediately repudiate that. He knew about this. He knew about this, I'm sure. He's still involved with it in some way. He created this website, this Facebook page. And I believe that that statement, including the word illegal, was false, misleading, and damaging. It should have been repudiated and corrected immediately. Thank you.
So let's talk about Stand Up for Santa Clara. One of the reasons that I founded Stand Up for Santa Clara years ago was because of our mayor trying to do backdoor deals and not letting the public know what was actually going on. It was basically a very simple $29 website, and we collected emails and we sent out information, okay? We also sent out, the reason that we did it is because there were so many backdoor deals going on, the public was fed up. I was fed up. I was lied to by the council, I was lied to by the mayor, I was lied to by the city manager, and so there were 4 or 5 of us that decided to start it. Once I announced my candidacy, which Ms. Mahan is going to try to paint this picture of me hiding behind a Facebook website, putting all this stuff out about her, it's just completely false. I cannot be involved with Stand Up for Santa Clara and run for office. This is ludicrous that I'm even here having to answer these questions. But given the nature of this campaign, am I surprised? No. This is the least of my worries. But let's talk about, since she wants to talk about being a lobbyist or not, Ms. Mahan has been an attorney for 35 years. She's been on the council for 12. She's been a mayor for 8. And what she fails to read you is the conclusion of the report, which says, and I quote, "Based upon the foregoing, I conclude Ms. Mahan engaged in lobbying within the meaning of the lobbying ordinance when she met with various city officials on All Vision's behalf, and that she was not exempt from the registration as a lobbyist under the attorney exemption. However, her failure to register did not constitute a knowing violation of the ordinance, and that a reasonable and good faith belief that she was coveted by the attorney exemption has satisfied the requirement." So she wants you to believe that after 35 years of practicing law, 20 years of being on the council, that she didn't know if she was an attorney or a lobbyist. I'm sorry, guys, but if you practice law for that long, okay, and you were on the council for that long, and she's been lobbied for 20 years, and she's going to come up and say, "Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know I was a lobbyist." But let's go one step further. All Vision, I think it was, is a company that puts up signs for advertisement. And they have a contract before the city. Quote unquote, they had a contract. I'm not aware of a contract, but okay, so there's a contract. Why would All Vision call an estate planner to represent them at City Hall? If you're going to court on a criminal proceeding, are you going to hire an estate planner to represent you in court? No, you'll hire a criminal attorney. If you have a patent pending, are you going to hire an estate attorney? No, you're going to hire a patent attorney. So I find it convenient that All Vision hired Ms. Mahan, a former mayor, former council member, 35 years in law, and I've been in corporate America for 16 years. I can tell you, we've hired dozens and dozens of attorneys, but I've never hired an attorney. I've never hired an estate attorney to settle any issue that was before me as in labor, or our contracts, or our patents. So I think it's funny that she's sitting up here, bringing me up here, trying to convince people that I'm behind this website, which I have absolutely nothing to do with this website whatsoever. In fact, the person you should talk to is Bert Field. Bert is the one who actually took it over as soon as I ran or announced my candidacy. I mean, I wasn't even at where the press was called to discuss the blue pack dark money. I wasn't even at the press conference. So if I'm the founder, why am I not there? So unfortunately, I'm sorry that we've all had to waste our time here, but the truth of the matter is the conclusion was that she was a lobbyist. She did not have the exemption. That was the conclusion of the council. She chooses to read one section of it, and she hangs her hat on it. Well, sorry, Patty, but the conclusion is in black and white. It's right here. Everybody can read it. I didn't write it. The independent attorney did.
I'm sorry that my opponent feels that this is a waste of time. He said to me before we started that he felt it was a kangaroo court. I feel very much differently. And once again, by innuendo, he said that this was started to expose backroom deals done by the mayor. I hope none of you think that that mayor was me, because he left that open without specifying that the mayor in question was my successor, Mr. Matthews. The site was founded in 2015 after I had left office as mayor. It is true the sentence he read is in the report. The sentence I read is the immediate next sentence in that same report. The key is knowing violation. That is what the statute requires, and that is what I did not violate. And that is the key, because nothing was done that was illegal, because I did not violate the ordinance that requires a knowing violation. In making this report, the independent counsel spoke to the council members that we spoke with, myself, along with my client, who was present at every meeting. We spoke about the contract. We spoke about some other legal issues. It is true that my practice specializes in estate planning, my private practice. It's also true, in 20 years on the city council, I have had a great deal of experience with CEQA law, with the California Environmental Quality Control Act. This is the scope of my representation on this contract and others in other cities for this same client. My expertise in CEQA law. It is an expertise that I acquired during my experience on city council. It's an expertise that until now I was not able to add to my practice, because as a city council member I can't advise clients on CEQA law because it would create a conflict of interest. That conflict of interest once goes away when you've been off the council for a year, which I was. I'm now free to take on clients who have CEQA law issues because I have developed some expertise in that area, and it is in that area that I was representing this particular client. The quote, lobbying activity seems to be based on the interpretation of those persons with whom I met and with whom the independent counsel also met and discussed this case. In the paper, 2 of those council members have openly said, even before the independent counsel began her investigation, openly said they thought they were being lobbied. Well, if lobbying is in the eye of the beholder, then this ordinance is severely flawed. This ordinance also says, without any doubt, without any qualification, no council member can accept any gift from a lobbyist, not even a cup of coffee. If these council members felt that I was really a lobbyist, and I met with one of them on May 23rd, why on May 27th did that same council member take a gift of a trip to Montana from me? Take gifts of meals that I paid for. Take gifts of a party that I paid for. Take gifts of using my car, which I paid for. Why would the council member take all those gifts from a known or perceived lobbyist in violation, clear violation of our city's law? My answer is twofold. Either that council member didn't understand the law that she wrote because it came out of her ethics committee, which I really don't believe, or she really didn't think I was a lobbyist, And they're using this as, in some way, in a campaign against my candidacy, even though I'm not even running against these other two council members that have said this in the press. So I still stand firm that I believe the word illegal was misused, it's misleading, it's damaging, and it should have been repudiated. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not talking about Mayor Mahan. I'm talking about Mayor Matthews. So I have no problem saying that. But on October 14th of 2010 or 2014, when there was a meeting, I remember that you were talking to Lisa Gilmore because we had a 100% cost recovery for developer fees, and you wanted 65%. You didn't agree with it. So you went ahead and pulled a bunch of developers together along with a certain number of council members and went and had a meeting. But the funny thing is you didn't tell the rest of the council who was not in favor of 65, but they were in favor of 100. You can go to the website and watch it. So that was one of the reasons I started to stand up, because of those backdoor meetings. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But let's talk about every meeting. She's a CEQA attorney now. How many other clients do you have that you represent under CEQA? One. Let's talk about when let's get down to this gift, okay? The gift is you were best friends with somebody. You were best friends with somebody who was on the council, and you guys went everywhere together. But the truth of the matter is most people that hear this feel that you took advantage of that friend. And just because you took her to Montana doesn't mean that you weren't lobbying, because I doubt you talked about All Vision when you were in Montana. Because if you were talking about All Vision in Montana, then why did you take somebody all the way to Montana, a council member, to talk about All Vision? So you say that you didn't talk about All Vision when you took her to Montana, so then how you weren't a lobbyist then, right? But she said you were for the other 4 or 5 meetings that you had, not just the one. So we can sit here and play these games and so on and so forth, but I've been called out of my school to come and answer because the word illegal, that I didn't even put up on there. I didn't put the word illegal. I don't post anything to Stand Up for Santa Clara. But you know, Patty, if you want to go over semantics, was it legal, was it not legal? The truth of the matter is I'm not reading one sentence, I'm reading the conclusion. I'm reading the conclusion of the independent counsel. And so I'm sorry that you don't want to see it that way. I'm sorry you're going to hide behind ignorance. I'm sorry that you're going to say, I took a council member to Montana as a friend and a friend only. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. I've been hit by allegations of harboring child molesters. I've had thousands of text messages sent out stating that. I've had hundreds, if not tens of thousands of phone calls being made about me, a new Facebook page about me. What else did I have? I actually wrote a few other things down that I've had to endure. Oh, I was labeled as by Steve Kelly, I think his name is, been slandered by him. And then John Malarnick, who lost his election 2 years ago, actually comes up with these FPPC violations, one of which, by the way, was that I didn't get my signs printed by Pacific Printing. And it's right on the bottom of my sign where I got it printed. He also said I didn't pay for it, but yet he posts the amount of money that I actually paid to them. These are the allegations that I've had to go through, Patty, to serve my city. And for you to sit back and say, I said the word illegal, if that's the worst thing that's happened to you during this election, then I think you've come out of it pretty unscathed. Because I can tell you this, most of the people that I talk to now ask me, how do you even get up in the morning when you have to deal with all this pressure? And the reason is because I do want to serve. But if I have to take one more hit, I'll take one more hit. You want to make these allegations? Make the allegations. Take a number, get in line, because they're all false.
Thank you. Let me ask now if Mr. Sturkle and Mr. Sellers would be kind enough to come forward. Mr. Sturkle and Mr. Sellers. Begin by making two comments. One is this complaint was filed by Mr. Sturkle. It relates to a comment made in one of the issue forums here in City Hall. I have reviewed the video of that on multiple occasions, discussed this with both parties, and it is a matter that we're now going to discuss. I, one more time, want to point out to both Mr. Sturkle and Mr. Sellers, who have been entirely cooperative on this point, that because of the nature of the underlying issue in here, you have agreed not to mention names involved or to mention in any other way matters that relate to what is in essence a personnel matter and is covered by an entire range of laws and regulations, and that you are both on notice that there could be potential personal liability should you get a field of that admonishment. With that, Mr. Sturkle, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Keeley. Ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this election cycle, both candidates for the office of Chief of Police signed an oath promising to present themselves honestly, ethically, and to present their records and policies with sincerity and frankness. We are here today because Mr. Sellers has not purported his record with sincerity and frankness, particularly in regards with his relationships with his employee groups. Mr. Sellers has embarked on a narrative, both in print and in comment, that he has a positive relationship with his employee groups, that he provides good leadership to them, and that he is respected by them. Unfortunately, the results of his 4-year term have proved otherwise, because the truth is the police officers of your city do not support Chief Sellers. In an overwhelming vote, almost majority, they voted to endorse his opponent, Pat Nicolai. The 911 dispatchers of this city, the non-sworn personnel in police headquarters, do not support Chief Sellers. Their vote was a landslide to support Pat Nicolai in this election. I can understand the challenge of Mr. Sellers going through this process, knowing these facts, because when 95% of the people who work for you behind closed doors are trying to replace you, it can be quite challenging. So I understand trying to form a narrative to his advantage within acceptable confines. But I don't agree when he goes outside those confines and it causes him to say things that are not true. For example, on August 25th, in front of the Chamber of Commerce, while trying to get their endorsements, Mr. Sellers told the Chamber of Commerce that as he has been chief, while he has been chief, nobody has filed a grievance or a complaint against him, and this was not true. 1 week prior to this statement, one of his employees filed a formal grievance against him and his administration. The grievance was hand-delivered to Mr. Sellers' office that week prior. It was forwarded to the City of Santa Clara, who immediately started an investigation. The investigation was occurring when Mr. Sellers made this false statement. Mr. Sellers doubled down on this false statement approximately 3 weeks later at a city candidates forum here in this room on this television station, where he was fielded a question from a member of the public regarding his leadership results at the police department. Mr. Sellers said, quote, "In working with the Police Officers Association in the past 4 years, I have had 0 grievances, 0 complaints." End quote. Again, I'm sorry, but it was just not true. The previously mentioned grievance was still being investigated. It's still being investigated to this day. It is not yet resolved. The So you may ask, what is the damage done by these statements? Other than one's reputation, what is the damage that's being done? The damage that has been done is that by making these false statements, Mr. Sellers has gained political advantage in this election. He gained the Chamber of Commerce's endorsement. It's a valuable endorsement, and it comes with perks. They advertise for him. He advertises his endorsements. I Googled Mr. Sellers' name the other day. The first thing that came up was a paid Google hit touting the Chamber of Commerce's endorsement, one which he gained in part fraudulently. The Chamber of Commerce, as I said, advertises for him. There's an ad here that I find interesting. It's a picture of him in his chief uniform with a comment that says he is respected by his officers. These are the same officers who only yesterday voted a vote of no confidence against Mr. Sellers, citing 3 main points: a lack of honesty, a lack of integrity, and a lack of accountability under his leadership. What I ask for is 3 things. I think it's only prudent that Mr. Sellers return the Chamber of Commerce endorsement, that the Google ad be removed touting the endorsement, and that he issue a public apology on his website, his campaign website, for obtaining this endorsement on false premises. Thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, this has been a very interesting election cycle. I did receive a verbal notification from Mr. Fred Keeley about 3 weeks ago, specifically outlining about the grievance that I made a statement at the public forum that the POA has not filed any formal grievances against me or the organization, which I still hold that to be true. I think it's very, very important for everybody to understand what a grievance is. And a grievance is when an employee appeals or files a complaint regarding the interpretation of existing rules and regulations. Grievances do not apply to suspensions, demotions, dismissals. That's completely a different procedure process. And a grievance is outlined in CMD 47, which specifically has specific steps for that. If an officer or an employee complains or files a grievance, their immediate supervisor then tries to resolve the issue. They have 5 working days to do that. If it's not resolved, then it then goes to the division commander, and that individual obviously has a chance to resolve it. It then comes up to my office after an additional 5 more days, and then I have the opportunity to resolve it. If I'm not unable to resolve it, then it goes over to Human Resources and takes a different route. This particular employee that we're discussing today did not file a grievance. This employee actually used the wrong form, and when it went over to Human Resource Department, they corrected them and made sure that it was filed on an EEO form, which stands for Equal Employment Opportunity. This employee filed a complaint against another employee. Human Resources is doing the investigation under CMD 131. Human Resources hired an outside investigator, which is Public Management Group, consultant Neil Telford. That individual is actually conducting the investigation. Again, I stand by that the POA has not filed any grievances. This particular incident is an EEOC complaint. It is not EEO complaint, excuse me. It is not a grievance, and I stand by what I said. It's very unfortunate, as Tino mentioned earlier, what has been taking place in this election process. We're continually being attacked and hit instead of just dealing with the issues. I do believe I've always had a good working relationship with the men and women of our department, and we have not had any grievances filed as I've been in the office. Thank you.
This is very interesting. It is true that this complaint is being investigated under City Manager's Directive 131. Remind you that Mr. Sellers twice stated that nobody has grieved or complained against him. The form that was filled out to initiate this action is called the grievance form. What is being investigated under now, CMD 131, is titled a discrimination complaint procedure. So the best way I can interpret it, Mr. Sellers' defense is, I did not lie to the Chamber of Commerce, I just deceived them. And I don't know which is worse. I recently watched an interview that Mr. Sellers conducted on camera. He was asked by the interviewer about some of our officers that have been arrested under his watch. While answering the question, Mr. Sellers properly noted that we as law enforcement officers are held to a higher standard, and we should be, and that these officers were held accountable by him because they no longer work at the police department, as is proper. I will just remind Mr. Sellers that he is held to the same standards by his employees. And he is held to the high level of accountability as we are. Thank you, Mr. Keeley. I have nothing further on this.
And I completely agree with Brian that I should be held accountable to the highest degree, and I do believe I am. Like I stated before, the issue with the employee is an EEO complaint, specifically against another employee. Has nothing to do with the POA itself, and or it's not a grievance. In addition to this process, I just think it is really important to understand that I just received the official complaint from the city clerk's office 10 minutes before coming here to the office. I think that's unacceptable. I have had conversations with Mr. Keeley, but to fully prepare for this situation, I think that the individual should be allowed the actual complaint, copy of the complaint much prior to that. In reviewing the complaint as I was driving over here, I noticed that the employee's name is listed on the complaint, which I think is inappropriate, especially when we're dealing with personnel issues. And in addition, the dates of the accusations are completely wrong. For example, it talks about when the grievance was filed, which it wasn't. Again, it was an EO. It was on one particular date, starts on 8/18, then it goes to 8/22, then 8/23, and then it talks about the employee then talked to the investigator. It's not a mediator, he's an investigator, which is back on 8/21. So I don't know how you can talk to the investigator before the investigation is actually filed. And then that evening, I made those statements. And again, I stand by it. The POA have not filed any grievances. This is strictly a personnel matter, one employee versus another. And it's an EEO, which is outlined in CMD 131, and is being handled by HR director. In addition, I talked to Julia Hill, who was our assistant city attorney, who's now working as assistant director in HR, and she completely agrees that the statements I made are accurate and that this is not a grievance, this is an EEO, and Mr. Keeley was advised that also. And if you would like, I'd be more than happy to have Julia Hill come in here and educate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. The third matter that we will hear, I was advised by Ms. Watanabe, we have scheduled that for 1:30 p.m. because Ms. Watanabe has other obligations until that time. So she asked me when we were scheduling this if that could happen at 1:30. Because of her employment activities, she needed to have this scheduled for that time. Trying to leave sufficient time for all of this to unfold today, we have scheduled it for 1:30. So, Ms. Mahan, without objection, what we will do... Well, we had it scheduled for 1:30. Okay, thank you. So what we will do is we will stand adjourned. You can't make people show up at these. We're attempting to accommodate an awful lot of schedules. So what we will do is we will recess, rather, and we will come back here at 1:30 and take up this other item. Thank you. We are at an accountability forum, and this is hosted by the City of Santa Clara as part of Santa Clara Votes program. This accountability forum has 3 parts to it. We have completed 2 parts of that, and I want to thank all of you for your patience. I had indicated to Ms. Watanabe that we would wait until 1:30 because she had work activities that she advised me of, and we scheduled it for 1:30. We finished the other matters a little bit earlier, and thank you all for your patience in the last 45 minutes or so. We are now on our 3rd issue. This involves Ms. Mahan and Ms. Watanabe, and I will ask Ms. Mahan to begin by approaching the podium.
During her interview with the San Jose Mercury News editorial board on September 26th, Ms. Watanabe stated that I opposed the Rivermark development. That evening, at an election forum attended by many Santa Clarans, she stated that 2 candidates present voted against the Rivermark project. The only 2 candidates in the room who were on the council at the time were myself and John McLemore. It was obvious to whom she was referring. She compounded her misstatement by stating it was a 4-3 vote. I don't know where Ms. Watanabe obtained her information, but the facts prove she was wrong. On September 19, 2000, the City Council, consisting then of Mayor Judy Nadler and Council members Aldith Parle, Rod Dearden, James Arno, Lisa Gilmore, John McLemore, and myself, took final action on the Rivermark development on the former Agnews Developmental Center campus. It was a 210-acre parcel and was master planned to include 3,020 homes, a shopping center, a school, a police substation, and a park on land that was owned by the state of California and was being developed after the closure of Agnews. The minutes of our City Council meeting on that date show the following: all the actions taken as necessary to approve the project. The motion to approve the environmental impact report for the Rivermark project passed unanimously. The motion to pass the general plan amendment number 51 passed unanimously. The motion to pass the rezoning passed with myself and John McLemore dissenting because the zoning included only 6 acres of public park and we wanted more open space. The motion to approve the Plan Development Master Community Plan zoning passed with Councilmember McLemore and Mayor Nadler dissenting because they wanted an increase in open space. I voted in favor of this motion, which essentially means I approve the project as it now exists. The motion to approve the development agreement between the city, the state, and the Rivermark partners, who were the private developers, passed unanimously. There were then a series of motions to specify some unique plans for the Rivermark area. All of these actions were taken with a unanimous vote of the council to include the following elements: 780 single-family residences and a 240,000-foot retail space, 100 affordable family units, an emergency housing facility and 18 transitional housing units, 100 affordable units for seniors, and 3 group homes to accommodate developmentally disabled individuals. These actions made Rivermark one of the best master plan developments in the state. It won the Grand Award for Master Plan Project of the Year in 2004 and the Grand and Merit Award from the Builder magazine in 2003. It's a wonderful model of smart growth. The development had the strong support of our community at large and our council as a whole. Perhaps lacking the history and knowledge of Rivermark, Ms. Watanabe was unaware of my strong support of the Rivermark project. But if you are interested in the truth, a short search online reveals an article published in the Silicon Valley Business Journal, published September 24th, 2000, just after the final action was taken by the council. It reports that, quote, the council approved the project on September 19th by a vote of 5-2. Mayor Judy Nadler and Councilmember John McLemore voted against the plan, citing the need for more open space in the project. The report only referred to that one vote concerning the master community plan rezoning and didn't delve further into the many unanimous votes approving the other actions necessary to complete the project. But reading that short article alone would have educated Ms. Watanabe on the facts that I did not oppose Rivermark, and the vote was never 4-3. I requested the council minutes from our year 2000 on the Rivermark project via email and had copies within 48 hours. So efficient is our city clerk's office. I am sure Ms. Watanabe could have gotten the minutes just as quickly had she been interested in finding out the truth. Instead, she seemed content to make these misstatements without regard for the truth. Some would even call them outright lies, whether by commission or omission, in an effort to damage my campaign and that of former council member John McLemore. The negative campaigning in this election is the worst I've ever seen. Much of it has been promulgated by special interest, outside interests, independent expenditures, publishing some of the most inflammatory pieces ever printed. I'll finish that in my next 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Watanabe, and I am pleased to be able to stand here today and defend myself against statements that I made. Ms. Mahan addresses the fact that she passed Rivermark. I love Rivermark. I'm very happy to have lived there for the last 11 years. However, what Ms. Mahan doesn't address is the fact that there was a reconsideration of the project. And when before that reconsideration happened, she had voted against the project. It wasn't until after the reconsideration that she voted in favor of Rivermark. What I'd like to also address, since Ms. Mahan has seemed to bring it up as being necessary to bring up, I did speak about this at the Mercury News interview, and I did also address it at the Democratic Club endorsement process. Excuse me. The reason I brought it up at the endorsement process is because Ms. Mahan seemed to she likes to take digs. And that's what she did that evening. When she spoke about, there was a question regarding openness and transparency in the city. And she took it upon herself to talk about and remind people, even though unless you were aware of the situation, you didn't understand the dig. But she had made a comment on Facebook for everybody to see about how I had missed the Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting on September 12th. The reason I missed the meeting is because I was at the 49ers game with my husband and his boss and his wife. It was a pre-arranged evening. The Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting, along with the Reclaiming Our Downtown Facebook group, had been trying to meet for the last couple of months. I could very easily, as part of the Downtown Revitalization Committee, asked for a delay on the meeting. But what was more important that evening was the fact that these two groups had the opportunity to get together and continue this goal of revitalizing our downtown. It's been going on for a long time. My personal life should not take precedence over the importance of community matters. So when Ms. Mahan addressed that evening at the Democratic Club meeting, well, actually, excuse me, let me go back. She posted the fact that I missed the meeting on September 12th. She posted it on Facebook for everybody to see as an embarrassment to me. And I addressed it like I should have. I defended myself. But as a council person and former mayor, I found it very troubling that anybody would feel it necessary to stoop that low to post something so minuscule on Facebook as an embarrassment. And as a matter of fact, many people came to me and talked to me about how basically she lost their vote, and they also took down her signs as a result. because it was a very, very petty thing to do. Then, at the Democratic Club meeting, she made a point to address it again. Again, it was in a subtle way that, again, if you were aware of the situation, that you would understand her point. However, because she found it necessary to bring it up again that evening, I addressed the issue about Rivermark. As I've said, there was a reconsideration on the project. She initially voted against it. It was a 4-3 vote, and it was only until after the reconsideration that she came out in support of the project. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure where you get that information about the reconsideration, but on all the final actions of Rivermark, the record is clear that I supported that project, and I don't see a 4-3 vote anywhere in the minutes. Also, this job demands sacrifice. I can't tell you how many family events I missed, how many school events I missed, how many just personal events I put aside in order to do my job as mayor and council member, because it comes first. In my mind, it always comes first. Would I have missed a downtown revitalization meeting for a 49er game? No, I would not have. The negative campaigning, as I was beginning to say, in this election is the worst I've ever seen. And much of it is outside interest, independent expenditures. But some of these pieces that are coming out are so inflammatory, and some of them are even not very subtle with their racist overtones, demeaning the two minority candidates we have in this election, the chance to elect for the first time in Santa Clara's history. It's bad enough when outside interests campaign by innuendo and insinuation, but these words come from a candidate who has promised in our campaign ethics pledge not to use scurrilous attacks in any candidate, against any candidate, and who has adopted our city's code of ethics to be truthful. Some of you who were here earlier heard the apology that was read to you from Ms. Watanabe, issued to Mr. Becker for misstatements she made about his campaign in a well-attended public forum, a forum I attended at the Portuguese SES Hall. She implied that Mr. Becker and her other opponents did something wrong. First, there's nothing wrong with accepting campaign contributions from one of our city's leading attorneys, who has a very lucrative practice in Santa Clara, even if he has filed formal complaints against Ms. Watanabe, Ms. Silva, Ms. Davis, and Ms. O'Neill. These are formal FPPC complaints that he filed, and she attempted to make it sound like because he filed complaints, he couldn't give campaign contributions. But there's nothing wrong with that. But even more importantly, Mr. Becker never received any donation from this attorney. Neither did Mr. Mario Buza, Kathy's other opponent, and neither did Dr. Mohammed Nadim, her other opponent. Yet she made it seem like they did by innuendo. And as I spoke to many members of the audience afterwards, they were puzzled and misled by her statements. This is why misleading statements are damaging, because people don't understand them and they may accept them for the truth. This pattern of behavior in making misstatements about other candidates by innuendo and insinuation without proof and without remorse is unbecoming to a candidate. It seems calculated, but it's also quite senseless when the facts are so easily discovered and proven. It's difficult to understand why she would do this, and more difficult even to understand how she thought it would go unnoticed. If I don't stand up here for the truth, then what do I stand for? And if I don't stand up here defending good people, then what good am I?
That's right, Ms. Mahan, you are the good people, right, is according to Blue Pack. You know, it's, there's so much I could say right now, and I hope I can put it all together. But what happened at the Portuguese Forum was very unfortunate that Mr. Becker decided to bring the copy of the Santa Clara Weekly to try and expose Teresa O'Neill, Tino Silva, Debbie Davis, and myself as having violated FPPC rules and regulations. As I was not able to really state, it was amazing how the Santa Clara Weekly could write this article by a crackerjack reporter about our violations without talking to us first, frankly. Is that somebody, is that proper journalism? Is that something that a reporter should be proud of? The fact that they took a one-sided complaint, they took a one-sided story and didn't ask about the facts? Anyway, going back, what Ms. Mahan talks about, I will stand by the record in the minutes that initially she voted against Rivermark, that it was a 4-3 vote until after the reconsideration. There's an expression, well, you started it. Well, you know what, Ms. Mahan? You started this. When you posted that comment on Facebook, that was unnecessary about the fact that I missed the Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting. I was not the chair. I was excused. If there was any other way that I could have been at that meeting, I would have been there, because this community is very important to me. It's one of the reasons why I made sure that the Reclaiming Our Downtown Facebook group was aware of the fact that there was a downtown revitalization committee and that they were brought together to be able to continue to explore the things that they care about, which is the downtown, an old downtown, an idea that is very important still to many Santa Clarans, and I would like to see that happen. It's one of the reasons why I want to win this election, so that I can continue to work with this community. Going back about the ethics and these claims about the campaigns that have been going forward, I have been running an upscale, thoughtful campaign. And to have anybody try and discredit me, to say things about me that aren't true, to try and discredit others is not right. Blue PAC has been a very divisive organization trying to do this. To see John Menarick file a complaint against good people without any basis of facts, and to see it followed up with without any investigation, is wrong. All of it is wrong. And it's those kinds of things that are wrong in Santa Clara right now that are making this election wrong. Santa Clara does not deserve this going on in its city. Santa Clara deserves better. The mayor, the vice mayor, Councilmember Davis, and myself have been working very hard to keep this city going in that direction, to hold the people that are trying to influence our city, hold them accountable, so that our city can continue to move forward. We need new ideas, we need new people, and the only way that's going to be done is to continue moving forward, leave the past in the past, and just keep moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much. This brings us to the end of the Accountability Forum today. Let me indicate to you where this project goes from here. We are roughly halfway through the period of time that voters can cast absentee votes or votes by mail, and that's about the right place to have this particular forum, because then voters can who do choose to cast their ballot that way will have some benefit of the accountability forums. There may or may not be one more, and that would be on Monday night, November the 7th, which would be the day before the election. That is customarily when this project has held the accountability forums. One of the challenges issued to me by, as the contractor, the independent contractor on this project, was to see how, if at all, the last word forum or final word forum could be modified to capture those who were voting before the election, before Election Day. And so that's why we had this forum. The next couple of weeks will be, of course, full of campaigning, and I will be continuing to receive, if people submit them, complaints of alleged violations of the city's code of campaign ethics, which almost all candidates have signed. Those will come in. I will review them as I have reviewed the 10 or 11 that have already come in, of which 3 have risen to the level that we had this forum today. And if one or more of those complaints rise to the same level, then what will happen is there will be a final word or last word forum on Monday night, November the 7th. If not, there will not be. It is solely dictated by the facts on the ground between now and November the 7th. So with that, thank you all of the parties who have been here today. Thank you those of you who are watching this or watching it on replay, and good day.